The morning fog clung to Arlington's hills, hiding a shadow that didn't belong. A masked figure stood at the edge of the crowd, eyes locked on the tomb guard Sergeant Michael Thompson as he marched his precise 21 steps. The air was heavy with reverence until a knife flashed in the sunlight, slicing through the silence toward the sentinel's heart. Gas erupted, but Michael's hand moved faster than fear. What the crowd didn't know, what the attacker never expected, was that this tomb guard wasn't just a symbol. He was a battle-hardened Marine who'd faced death before. And as the blade hung in his grip, the real question wasn't who threw it, but what secrets the sacred ground would reveal before the day was done. Before we dive into the story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that values like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, join us in keeping their legacy alive. The morning fog hung low over Arlington National Cemetery on that crisp September day in 2025, clinging to the rolling hills like a silent shroud over the nation's hallowed ground. The air carried the faint scent of freshly cut grass mixed with the earthy aroma of distant pine trees, a reminder of the living world encroaching on this place of eternal rest. At the center of it all stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, a stark white marble monument etched with words that resonated deeply in the American soul. Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. This wasn't just a stone slab, it was a symbol of sacrifice, honoring the unidentified heroes from World War I, World War II, Korea, and beyond, those who gave everything for the ideals of freedom and democracy that defined the United States. Sergeant Michael Thompson assumed his post just as the first golden rays of sunlight began to pierce through the mist, casting long shadows across the plaza. At 30 years old, Michael was a seasoned member of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard, the Army's oldest active-duty infantry unit, dating back to 1784. His uniform was a masterpiece of precision, black boots polished to a mirror-like sheen that reflected the surrounding headstones, white gloves immaculate and free of any blemish, and his blue infantry coat adorned with gold buttons that caught the light like tiny beacons. He executed his march with unwavering exactness, 21 measured steps along the black mat, a sharp about-face with a click of heels echoing like a metronome, then a pause of exactly 21 seconds. This ritual wasn't mere ceremony. It symbolized the highest military honor, the 21-gun salute, a tradition rooted in American history. For Michael, guarding the tomb was more than a duty. It was a calling, forged in the fires of real combat. He'd served 2 grueling tours in Afghanistan, where the dust-choked valleys of Helmand Province had tested him in ways no training could fully prepare for. He remembered the ambushes vividly, the sudden crack of gunfire, the metallic tang of blood in the air, and the heartbreaking loss of comrades like his best friend Ryan Keller, who had taken a sniper bullet while covering Michael's position during a night patrol. Those experiences had sharpened his instincts to a razor's edge, teaching him that vigilance wasn't optional, it was survival. Now, standing here at Arlington, Michael honored not just the unknowns interred beneath the marble, but every American service member who'd paid the ultimate price. In his mind, the tomb represented the unbroken chain of sacrifice that kept the nation free, a reminder that democracy's flame was tended by the blood of the brave. A modest crowd had gathered early that morning, drawn by the solemn beauty of the sight. Tourists from across the country mingled quietly, their voices hushed in respect for the over 400,000 souls buried in the cemetery's vast expanse. Among them was Colonel Robert Jenkins, a retired Army officer in his early 70s whose posture remained ramrod straight despite the years. Robert had commanded troops through the jungles of Vietnam in the late 1960s and the deserts of Iraq during Operation Desert Storm in the early 1990s. His medals, tucked away in a drawer at home, told stories of valor under fire. But today, he was simply a grandfather here with his 8-year-old grandson, Ethan Jenkins. Ethan, a curious boy with tousled brown hair and a backpack slung over one shoulder, clutched a small American flag he bought at the visitor center. "Grandpa, why does the soldier walk exactly 21 steps?" Ethan asked in a whisper, his eyes wide as he watched Michael's rhythmic patrol. "And why does he stop for so long? What if he gets itchy or has to sneeze? Wouldn't that mess everything up?" Robert knelt down to Ethan's level, his knee creaking slightly from old war wounds, and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. His voice was low and reassuring, carrying the gravelly timbre of a man who'd barked orders in the heat of battle. "That's the tomb's sentinel, Ethan. He's from the Old Guard, the best of the best. Those 21 steps and the pause, it's all about honor. A salute to every hero who's fought for our country. He doesn't move because true discipline means controlling yourself no matter what. It's what keeps America safe and strong. Soldiers like him stand firm so we can live free. Ethan nodded slowly, absorbing the words, but his gaze wandered across the plaza. The cemetery sprawled out like a sea of white markers, each one a story of service and loss. Other visitors added to the tapestry of the morning. The Harris family from Texas, Tom, a burly oil worker with a cowboy hat tipped back, his wife Sarah, a school teacher with a warm smile, and their teenage daughter Lily, scrolling on her phone but occasionally glancing up with teenage curiosity. Nearby, a young couple from New York, Jake and Emily, held hands tightly. Jake was a software engineer, Emily a graphic designer, both on a quick getaway to DC. And then there was Maria Gonzalez, a single mom from California, pushing a stroller with her 3-year-old son Lucas, who babbled happily at the birds flitting overhead. But in the reverent atmosphere, one figure stood out like a shadow in the sunlight. A young man in a dark overcoat lingered at the periphery of the group, his hands buried deep in his pockets. He wasn't snapping photos like the Harrises or whispering appreciatively like Jake and Emily. Instead, he remained unnaturally still, his eyes locked on Michael with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He was in his mid-20s, with sharp features partially hidden by a baseball cap pulled low. Robert noticed him first. Those old battlefield instincts from Vietnam kicking in, where spotting an anomaly could mean the difference between life and death. "Something's off about that guy," Robert muttered under his breath, suddenly shifting Ethan behind him for protection. Michael's peripheral vision registered the outlier too. In Afghanistan, such unnatural stillness often preceded danger. A Taliban spotter blending into a marketplace crowd, or a suicide bomber feigning casual interest. Michael didn't break his stride or alter his gaze, adhering strictly to the tomb sentinel's creed. But his mind cataloged every detail. The man's deliberate positioning, the way his coat bulged slightly on one side, the absence of any tourist-like behavior. This was home soil, Arlington National Cemetery, a place of peace, but Michael knew threats could emerge anywhere. His heart rate remained steady, a testament to years of training. As the sun climbed higher, burning off the fog and warming the air, the crowd swelled slightly with more arrivals. A group of high school students on a field trip from nearby Virginia, their teacher, Miss Patel, herding them with quiet instructions to observe respectfully. The man in the dark coat began to move, circling the perimeter of the viewing area with calculated steps. He paused near the Harris family, close enough to overhear Tom Harris's booming voice. "This place always gets me right here," Tom said, thumping his chest. "All these headstones remind you that freedom isn't free. My granddad fought in Korea. He's buried over that hill. Heroes, every one of them." The man snorted audibly, a derisive sound that cut through the quiet like a discordant note. Heroes, or just pawns in endless wars? His voice carried a bitter, accusatory edge, drawing puzzled glances from those around him. Sarah Harris turned, her eyebrows knitting in confusion. "Excuse me, these men and women laid down their lives for our country. If you can't show respect, maybe you shouldn't be here." The man, whose name was Alex Rivera, though no one knew it yet, stepped forward, his posture tense. Alex had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, enlisted briefly in the Army after high school, but deserted after 6 months disillusioned by what he saw as pointless deployments. Now radicalized by online forums and anti-war literature, he viewed the tomb as a propaganda tool, glorifying America's military adventures. "Civil. You come here for Instagram pics and feel-good vibes, but this tomb props up the whole machine. The unknown soldier. He's every young life wasted in forever wars."